The series begins with a woman named Bahar, who we see sewing her husband's work clothes. We learn that he is a famous surgeon named Taimur. Additionally, Bahar is seen ironing and preparing breakfast for all her family members with love while they are still sleeping. All she expects from them in return is to thank and appreciate her for what she does for them. Afterwards, Bahar gets ready and goes to her friend Shagla, who works as a cosmetic doctor. We learn that she and Bahar have been friends since university days, and that Shagla decided to pursue a career in medicine, unlike Bahar, who chose to dedicate herself to her family and leave the medical field. As soon as Bahar enters Shagla's clinic, she takes off her coat and tries it on. Shagla sees this and asks if Bahar intends to return to medicine, but Bahar denies it, saying she just wanted to see how she looks in the coat. However, Shagla refuses and is more concerned about asking Bahar about her well-being, noting that she looks tired and has seemed exhausted for years. She tells Bahar that her mother-in-law visits the clinic more often than any other place and advises Bahar to take care of herself just like her mother-in-law does. Shagla insists on giving Bahar a facial injection and takes her to the operating room. However, Bahar stops her, saying she didn't come for that, but to borrow money for a drawing course her daughter Umay wants to attend. She mentions that her husband doesn't know about it and promises to repay the money by the end of the month. Shagla agrees under the condition that Bahar listens to her and comes into the operating room for the facial injection. In the room, Shagla expresses her disappointment in Bahar for leaving medicine and giving up her dream for the sake of her husband and home. She points out that Bahar is living in poverty despite her husband's wealth, accuses her of living like a servant for them. She blames Bahar for doing all this for a man who hardly spends time at home and even sleeps in a separate room. Bahar gets upset by Shagla's words, arguing that a successful housewife is just as valuable as a working woman, and asks her not to belittle her efforts for her family and home, stating it was her choice. Bahar leaves, upset by Shagla's diminishing view of her life, while Shagla tries to apologize for her words. Bahar doesn't stop and looks sadly at the certificates Shagla has earned. Meanwhile, we see Taimur, Bahar's husband, heading to the hospital. We learn that he has become a prominent surgery professor with significant influence among the trainee doctors, including his son Aziz. We find out that Aziz doesn't like his father due to the constant criticism he faces from him and wants to be different from him in any way. Timur uses this to belittle Aziz even more in front of his colleagues, but Aziz's colleague, named Seran, consoles him, telling him that she had been in a similar situation before because her father was her high school principal. Then we see Taimur in the elevator with his colleague Renjin, and it's clear that they are in love and having an affair. Thus, Taimur is cheating on Bahar with her. On her way home, Bahar is thinking about what Shagla told her. Suddenly, a woman on the ferry she is on faints, and they call for a doctor. Bahar loudly claims that she is a doctor. However, those around the patient don't believe her and force her to come and provide first aid. Since Bahar left medicine 20 years ago, she has forgotten everything and tries to explain this, but they don't listen to her. So, Bahar screams, asking them to call an ambulance because she doesn't know what to do. After they reach the shore and the ambulance arrives to take the patient, everyone blames Bahar for being a doctor and not knowing how to act. They even threaten to report her for impersonating a doctor. To escape them, Bahar is forced to get into the ambulance with the patient and her daughter. Suddenly, a doctor arrives saying he needs to be in the ambulance to provide first aid to the patient in case of an allergic reaction. Indeed, he uses a scalpel and manages to restore the patient's normal breathing. However, he is puzzled by Bahar because she claims to be a doctor but doesn't know how to act. At that time, Bahar is holding the patient's daughter, playing with her and comforting her so she won't be upset about her mother. It's evident that this is the only thing Bahar knows how to do. At the hospital, Bahar thanks the doctor for saving the patient's life and leaves to return home, but he stops her and asks how she can say she's a doctor while not knowing how to act. Bahar tells him that she graduated from medical school 20 years ago and hasn't practiced the profession. She tried to explain this to the people on the ferry, but they didn't give her a chance. He apologizes for doubting her, and suddenly he notices her eye. He starts talking about her eye, but Bahar thinks he's flirting with her, so she tells him she's married and escapes before he can finish his sentence. Afterwards, Bahar returns home and apologizes to her mother-in-law, named Nevra, for being late. She wants to tell her about what happened on the ferry, but all Nevra cares about is her breakfast and fruit juice. Bahar says she could have asked the maid, but Nevra tells her she doesn't eat anything not made by her hands. She scolds Bahar for being late and for the juice having pulp, showing that Bahar serves people who don't appreciate her efforts. Nevra notices the bag and shirt Bahar wore and realizes they are hers. Bahar apologizes for taking them without asking and says she'll clean them and return them. However, Nevra tells her to keep them because she won't wear them again. While eating breakfast, Nevra praises Shagla for being being a successful doctor with her private clinic, making Bahar feel more inadequate. Because Nevra is smart and doesn't want to lose Bahar's loyalty, she tells her she's better than Shagla because she has a family, children, a wealthy husband who loves her, whereas Shagla, despite her success, is alone. Bahar is convinced by her words and feels comforted. At night, Bahar stands in the kitchen making lunch, and her daughter, Umay, returns from school, blaming her for not paying for the drawing course fees. Bahar tries to tell her about what happened on the ferry, but Umay doesn't listen. Bahar tells her that she borrowed money from Shagla and will pay for the expenses, happy that her daughter will do what she loves. Then Aziz enters and asks his mother about his father, saying he didn't see him when leaving the hospital, but his father is right behind him and, as usual, belittles him and speaks to him in a provoking manner. So Aziz leaves them and walks away. At dinner, everyone sits at the table with Bahar serving them. Not only that, but Nevra mocks Bahar for not knowing table etiquette, saying she has been teaching her for years and she always forgets. Taimur also blames Bahar for renewing the kitchen cabinets and leaving paint everywhere, asking when she will finish with the mess, viewing her as wasting his money on trivial things. Nevra tells her that the house is not hers to renovate as she pleases. Taimur then asks Aziz about his work at the hospital. Aziz says that working in the surgery department is not easy. Bahar interjects, saying Aziz might not want to continue in surgery, but Taimur dismisses her, telling her not to speak about what she doesn't understand and to stay in the kitchen. Aziz tells him that he wants to specialize in surgery. Finally, Bahar sits at the table to eat. Before she can take a bite, Taimur yells at her, saying the food is bad. She apologizes for forgetting to add salt and gets up to fetch it. However, the family's criticism doesn't stop, with each one recalling an instance when she forgot something. Umay remembers when Bahar forgot to bring her swimsuit at the resort, and Nevra says she has a friend with Alzheimer's who forgets less than Bahar, and they all mock her. Bahar gets upset and slams the salt shaker, but suppresses her anger, returning to laughter as if they weren't mocking her moments ago. Meanwhile, Renjin visits a fortune teller, seeking guidance due to her confusion about her relationship with Taimur. The fortune teller reproaches her upon discovering through the cards that Renjin loves a married man. Renjin defends herself, saying he and his wife have been separated for years and sleep in separate rooms. The fortune teller continues, saying the man she loves is a mama's boy who listens to everything his mother says, and that Renjin will either end up as his mother's servant or her life will be ruined. She advises Renjin to leave him, but Renjin is upset by her words, insisting she won't give up on him, as she has been waiting for him for years, knowing he loves her and won't give up until she gets him. The fortune teller asks her to draw 2 more cards, telling her that her lover's marriage will indeed collapse soon, but for an unexpected reason. Afterward, we see Bahar with Taimur in their room, preparing his bag for a conference in Paris. Noticing his glasses have become old, she decides to buy him a new pair. Bahar notices spots appearing on her hands and asks Taimur about them, but he dismisses her concerns, suggesting it's from dish soap and advising her to wear gloves while washing. Bahar tries to get closer to Taimur, lamenting that he no longer visits her room. She jokes about going to his boss to ask for him to come home early and also to check the spots on her hands. She implies they are too young for the distance growing between them. Upon hearing this, Taimur becomes angry, insisting she never go to the hospital and claiming if the spots were serious, he would have told her. Bahar expresses feeling very tired, wishing only to rest her head on his chest to relieve her fatigue. However, she notices Taimur distancing himself and not wanting to touch her. When his phone rings, he quickly leaves the room, further upsetting Bahar as she tries to express her exhaustion. Taimur attributes her condition to menopause and suggests she take walks for relief. Disturbed by his words, Bahar feels hurt and leaves him, heading to the kitchen. She takes a spoonful of an herbal mixture her mother gave her and spends the whole night painting the kitchen cabinets to finish them. In the morning, Taimur wakes up to leave for his conference, notices Bahar is awake early. She tells him she stayed up to finish the cabinets because she ran out of paint. Before leaving, Taimur reconciles with Bahar, promising to request time off from his boss upon his return to spend with her. He hugs her hurriedly before leaving. Bahar, feeling happy, decides to buy him new glasses to replace the old ones. While shopping, Bahar feels unwell, loses her balance, and faints. At the same time, Taimur is with Renjin, who buys him glasses to celebrate their 3-year anniversary together. It is revealed that Taimur is not attending a conference in Paris, but is actually going on a vacation to France with Renjin to celebrate their relationship anniversary. Suddenly, Taimur receives a call from Bahar, who is in the hospital after fainting and needs someone with her. Taimur tells her he is already at the airport and about to leave, advising her to call Nevra to come to the hospital. Bahar pretends to understand, insisting she doesn't want him to postpone his work for her and hangs up. Afterward, Bahar is informed by the doctor that her test results have shown she has liver enlargement. She must stay in the hospital for a period until they can perform another test and diagnose her condition precisely. At the same time, Nevra is at a society meeting where her friends inquire why she doesn't bring Bahar along. Nevra claims that Bahar is different, not fond of such gatherings, and more focused on her home and children, considering herself fortunate to have a daughter-in-law like Bahar. As Nevra steps away to answer a call, her friends comment among themselves that she's lying and has essentially made her daughter-in-law serve as a maid after making her quit her medical career to stay at home. Bahar, meanwhile, is asking Nevra to come to the hospital, informing her that she fainted. Before Bahar can explain her condition, Nevra tells her she can't come because she has to give a speech at the society party and will visit after she's finished, then hangs up and returns to her friends. Bahar's mother, Gul Sisik, is in the market with her nephew Omar, displaying a close and loving relationship. We learn that Gul raised Omar after his mother's death. When Bahar calls her in distress from the hospital, Gul is the only one who gets upset for Bahar and decides to visit her immediately. At the airport, when Renjin learns Bahar is in the hospital, she urges Taimur to visit her, suggesting they postpone their trip if he's going to be worried and upset. However, Taimur reassures her that Bahar sounded fine on the phone and that the matter must be minor. Back at the hospital, Bahar's test results are ready. She's given a paper to meet Dr. Irfan. On her way, she helps an elderly lady and then encounters the doctor who helped the patient on the ferry. Laughing, she tells him she's going to meet Dr. Irfan and he directs her to his office. Upon entering, Bahar discovers the same doctor. Following her is Dr. Irfan himself. They laugh at the coincidence. After reviewing Bahar's test results, Dr. Irfan inquires about her symptoms and notices the spots on her hands. He asks if she's been taking any medications or herbs, and Bahar explains that her mother gave her herbal remedies for her fatigue, of which she took 3 boxes. Dr. Irfan deduces that these herbs are the cause of her liver enlargement. He was about to comment on her jaundiced eyes during their first encounter, suggesting she needed to get checked. Dr. Irfan emphasizes that Bahar must be hospitalized immediately for treatment and might need a family member with her, warning that if she doesn't respond to treatment, a liver transplant could be necessary. Bahar mentions she needs to consult her husband first, since he is also a surgical doctor. Dr. Irfan advises her to do so quickly. After the examination, Bahar goes out to wait for her mother, Gul, and they leave the hospital together. Gul trusts everything Bahar says because she is a doctor, but Bahar explains that she hasn't practiced medicine for 20 years and doesn't consider herself a doctor anymore. Gul doesn't accept this explanation and wonders why Bahar isn't in Taimur's hospital. Bahar says she doesn't want to go there because Aziz would see her. Bahar is preoccupied with the fact that she hasn't made lunch and that Umay has exams, which makes her mother laugh, considering her concerns despite her illness. While Taimur is arriving in Paris with Renjin, Bahar is officially admitted to the hospital. Taimur and Renjin have dinner, and Renjin becomes upset when they witness a marriage proposal, questioning how long their relationship will remain a secret. Taimur tries to calm her with a surprise, leading Renjin to hope for a marriage proposal, but she is disappointed to receive a diamond bracelet instead, pretending to be happy with it. Aziz and Umay visit Bahar in the hospital with clothes, and Bahar is delighted to see them. Aziz suggests transferring Bahar to their hospital, but she refuses. Aziz and Umay are puzzled why their father isn't answering his phone, and Bahar suggests he must be busy with the conference, promising them she will recover quickly and return home. Taimur and Renjin are in their hotel room, with Renjin still upset about Taimur not divorcing Bahar, insisting they should be married by their next anniversary. Taimur promises this will happen. Suddenly, Taimur receives a call from Aziz, informing him that Bahar is in the hospital and needs an immediate liver transplant. The next day, Taimur and his family meet with Dr. Irfan, who conducts blood tests to find a compatible donor for Bahar. Dr. Irfan reveals that Aziz has a different blood type and Umay is too young, while Nevra and Gul are too old. Gul remembers Omar, Bahar's cousin, who has the same blood type as Bahar. Dr. Irfan says they won't need Omar because Taimur is a suitable donor, being healthy and of ideal weight, which brings joy to Aziz and Umay. Nevra collapses upon hearing this news, refusing the idea and suggesting they can easily find another donor, arguing she doesn't want the children to be left without parents. She goes to Bahar, insisting she's not in grave danger and that they can find another donor. Then Nevra pretends to have low blood pressure and feel unwell to draw attention to herself and divert it away from Bahar. Aziz and Umay are not convinced by the ongoing events and go to ask their father when he will donate to their mother. Timur angrily tells them that he is also getting older and needs to undergo many tests and consult with his friends. He says the matter requires thought and asks them to leave him alone. Bahar overhears this conversation. At the same time, Gul confronts Nevra for not wanting her son to donate to Bahar. She reminds Nevra that Bahar gave up medicine to take care of Taimur's father and has never fallen short in her duties towards them. Nevra angrily responds, saying no one asked Bahar to do so, and accuses her of using it as an excuse to leave medicine. Nevra shocks Gul by stating that the herbs she gave Bahar are the reason for her daughter's illness and that her son, Taimur, will not pay the price for their ignorance. Gul leaves Nevra upset and is surprised to find Bahar standing in front of her. Meanwhile, Dr. Irfan asks his assistant to look for a donor for Bahar, not confident in Taimur's willingness to donate. Bahar tries to comfort her mother, telling her not to feel guilty. Gul expresses her disappointment in Taimur, saying she loved him like a son but has realized his heart is as cold as his mother's. Bahar tries to find excuses for Taimur, saying the situation is not simple and requires thought. However, Gul is unconvinced and distrustful, wanting to beg Taimur and Nevra to save Bahar. Bahar stops her and they embrace, crying together. Meanwhile, Aziz is with his friend Saran, who tries to comfort him by saying if her father were in Taimur's place, he wouldn't donate to her mother. She jokes with Aziz, saying the best time for organ donation is within the first 5 years of marriage. Then, Gul pleads with Omar to save Bahar by donating part of his liver, offering him all her gold in exchange. Omar appreciates being raised by her after his mother's death and is grateful, but he reminds her that he has a young child who needs his mother. Gul cries and begs him. The next day, Dr. Irfan sees Bahar drawing an operating room. Bahar tells him about a case she encountered during her medical training, amazed that despite the patient having cancer and facing death, she was concerned about her son's exams. Bahar now understands why that patient thought that way. Moved by her story, Dr. Irfan shares that his professor used to say that if they were treating a mother, they should be prepared to witness miracles. Upon hearing Dr. Irfan's words, Bahar breaks down and cries. However, Dr. Irfan changes the subject upon discovering she's drawing an operating room. Bahar shares her wish to have entered an operating room but hesitated. Dr. Irfan decides to fulfill her wish, takes her with him, and dresses her in doctor's attire, capturing the moment together. Suddenly, Dr. Irfan's assistant interrupts them with Omar's test results, reassuring Bahar that he is a match and can donate to her. Bahar is elated and they continue their simulation. Bahar eagerly mimics Dr. Irfan, who sterilizes their hands before entering the operating room, where a nurse prepares them. Bahar observes Dr. Irfan perform surgery, thrilled by the experience. Meanwhile, Taimur is in Paris with Renjin, who asks if he feels guilty for being with her instead of his sick wife. Taimur insists that the outcome would have been the same regardless. Renjin expresses jealousy of Bahar for having her family by her side and fears being alone if she falls ill. Taimur promises to always be there for her, affirming his love. That night, Gul completes the procedures for Omar to donate part of his liver to Bahar. However, Sahar, Omar's wife, apologizes to Gul, stating Omar changed his mind because he has a young child to raise. Ashamed to tell Gul himself, he sent Sahar, who returns the gold Gul offered. Before Gul can convince her otherwise, Bahar loses consciousness, prompting doctors to rush to save her. Dr. Irfan informs Taimur that the donor backed out last minute and he is the only option left, emphasizing the urgency of a liver transplant within 24 hours and advising him to consider his children before deciding. Umay begs Taimur to donate to their mother, fearing her death. Taimur, overwhelmed, asks to be left alone. Aziz approaches Dr. Irfan, determined to find any way to save his mother. They agree to look for a donor outside the family, and Aziz begins reviewing files of individuals who have consented to organ donation after death. Timur returns home, trying to convince his mother to agree to his donation to Bahar, expressing his guilt in front of his children. His mother vehemently opposes, reminding him that his father loved Bahar more than them, receiving love and attention they never got. She criticizes Bahar's background, contrasting her with Renjin, whom she sees as a perfect match for her son, blaming him for leaving Renjin for Bahar. She hits him and expels him from her room. In the hospital, Umay is upset about all the wrong things she has done to Bahar and promises to be better towards her. Bahar reassures her that she isn't upset with her and promises never to leave them. At the same time, Shagla enters and scolds Bahar for not calling her to inform her about her condition. Bahar cries and tells her about Taimur's refusal to donate to her. Shagla comforts her, saying they will get through this situation and she'll be fine. Bahar asks Shagla to take care of her children if something happens to her, but Shagla promises nothing will happen. Later, Dr. Irfan discusses the procedures and preparations for Taimur's donation. Taimur is anxious and bombards Dr. Irfan with questions about his qualifications and the success rate of his surgeries, which annoys Dr. Irfan because it shows Taimur cares more about himself than Bahar. Dr. Irfan asks him to sign the consent form. Taimur visits Bahar and informs her that he will donate to her. Bahar reflects on their marriage, saying she did everything to make him happy and comfortable, to the extent of being quiet in his presence to not disturb him. She apologizes for any doubts she had about him and expresses gratitude for his willingness to save her life. Taimur then goes to sign the consent form, but hesitates, shaking as he hears his phone ring and reads a message from Renji threatening to leave him if he donates to Bahar. Suddenly, Nevra scolds Taimur for deciding to donate and snatches the paper from him, tearing it up. Bahar witnesses this. Later, Taimur's blood pressure is measured by a nurse. Nevra attempts to convince everyone that Taimur's health is too poor for him to undergo surgery, but Dr. Irfan confirms his blood pressure is normal. There's no reason to delay the operation. Despite Nevra's protests, Taimur asks to be left alone in his room as he prepares for surgery. Meanwhile, Bahar's condition worsens and her heart stops. Dr. Irfan's assistant informs him that Taimur has backed out of the donation. Dr. Irfan rushes to perform CPR on Bahar in an attempt to save her life. While Dr. Irfan is trying to save Bahar, Gul confronts Taimur, blaming him for not saving Bahar, despite all she has given him throughout her life. After successfully reviving Bahar's pulse, Dr. Irfan immediately takes her to the operating room, where they have found a liver from a deceased donor. Outside the operating room, Nevra blames Gul for her actions, but informs her that Bahar has found a donor and will recover. Gul, exhausted by the ordeal, asks Nevra to leave her and her son Taimur alone. A few hours later, the surgery is successful, marking a new beginning for Bahar. Taimur and his children visit Bahar after she wakes up from anesthesia. Upon realizing she is still alive, Bahar asks Taimur to come closer, then grabs him by his clothes, rebukes, and threatens him, expressing her deep-seated anger and disappointment. Eventually, Bahar fully recovers and is ready to leave the hospital, noticeably changed by the ordeal. Taimur visits her room, and Bahar treats him as if nothing happened, expressing surprise that he came to pick her up himself. Taimur is puzzled by her attitude, reminding her of what she said after waking up, but Bahar pretends not to remember anything. They meet Dr. Irfan on their way out, and Bahar thanks him for saving her life. It's evident that Taimur and Dr. Irfan do not get along. Outside the hospital, Gul is waiting for Bahar, intending to take her home. However, Bahar refuses, wanting to return to her children, indicating she has changed and is no longer the same person. At home, Bahar finds a welcome-back party organized for her. She pretends to be happy, even though she doesn't recognize any of the guests. When asked to give a speech, Bahar thanks Taimur and Nevra for their support, misleadingly praising Taimur for being willing to sacrifice himself for her, which surprises Taimur and Nevra and forces them to maintain appearances in front of the guests. Taimur tries to reconcile with Bahar, claiming the house was unbearable without her, but Aziz and Umay mock him, not forgetting his actions at the hospital. Umay is confused by her mother's normal interaction with Taimur. Bahar explains that it was a difficult decision, but asks Umay and Aziz to drop the subject and not discuss it further. Not only Umay is puzzled, but Nevra's friends are also convinced that Bahar is lying, highlighting the complexity of the situation and the different perceptions of Bahar's actions and Taimur's role in her recovery. After her speech at the party, Bahar talks with Shagla, who is pleased with Bahar's words that cause Taimur and Nevra to feel uncomfortable. Shagla jokingly suggests that Bahar should kill Taimur to get rid of him, but Bahar laughs it off, saying she's no longer focused on Taimur and is now thinking about herself. Shahla is happy for her and encourages her to enjoy her life. At night, Bahar goes to Taimur's room and becomes irritated upon finding him asleep. She imagines grabbing him, shouting at him for his betrayal, and questioning his conscience about their children living without a mother. She snaps out of her imagination and slaps Taimur across the face. Taimur wakes up, surprised by her presence, and asks why she hit him. Bahar dismissively says it's her prerogative and criticizes him for his smooth skin compared to hers, which shows signs of aging. She explains her illness felt like a slap to her, hoping it would wake him up to reality. Taimur rationalizes Bahar's behavior as a side effect of having received an organ from someone else or post-traumatic stress disorder from her experience. He suggests she sees a psychiatrist or engages in shopping and other activities instead of worrying about household chores. The next morning, Bahar wakes up intending to clean up after the party, but decides she wants to change her life and leaves everything as is, even telling the maid to take a week off and that she will send her salary. At breakfast, Taimur asks for his coffee, but Bahar lies and says the coffee machine is broken and he can make his coffee himself. Nevra wakes up and inquires about the maid, to which Bahar responds she's on a week's leave. Frustrated with his failed attempt at making coffee, Taimur asks Bahar to buy a new machine and to check multiple stores for the best price. When Nevra finds out Bahar is going shopping, she asks her to pick up a handbag she had ordered. Bahar refuses, drinking the juice she prepared for herself, and suggests Nevra make her own. This infuriates Nevra, but but Taimur tries to calm her. Umay enjoys the turmoil Bahar is causing. Nevra fails to make her juice, so Taimur ends up doing it for her. Bahar asks Nevra to make coffee for them to enjoy together, intending to further aggravate her. Later, Bahar informs Taimur she'll take some time to get dressed and asks him to wait to take her on his way. Meanwhile, Taimur, distracted by Bahar's behavior, discusses her actions with a colleague at the hospital, suspecting it's a result of the surgery. He requests medication for her, but his friend suggests bringing her in for a checkup instead, which Taimur refuses. Bahar, shopping for Nevra's handbag, learns from the salesman that Nevra paid 210,000 lira for it. Disturbed by the price, Bahar asks for a similar bag, but ends up buying expensive shoes from the same brand due to the bag's limited edition status. Taimur, attending a lecture, is shocked by numerous large transactions on his phone, becoming distracted by the significant amounts Bahar is spending. At an eyewear store, Bahar decides to buy herself glasses, indulging in several expensive pairs, followed by a shopping spree for clothes. Taimur is frustrated by the continual withdrawals from his account due to Bahar's spending. Taimur confides in Renjin about Bahar's purchases, leading Renjin to suggest that a woman who shops like this is looking to start a new life, possibly even falling in love again. Renjin's observation frightens Taimur, leading to an argument that ends with her leaving him. Taimur calls Bahar, who is at a beauty salon, to inquire if his account had been stolen. Bahar assures him she made the purchases, justifying her actions by explaining she had always worn second-hand clothes and felt entitled to enjoy the money Taimur earns just as she deserves. She hangs up, receiving applause from the women in the salon for standing up to her husband. Bahar then visits Umay's drawing class, taking her and Aziz out for lunch at a fancy restaurant frequented by Nevra. At the restaurant, Umay asks when Bahar will divorce Taimur, surprising Bahar and prompting Aziz to suggest such measures might not be necessary. Umay insists it's Bahar's right, but Bahar avoids the topic and quickly changes the subject. At home, Nevra is irritated that Bahar went shopping and scolds Taimur for not stopping her and for giving her the credit card. Suddenly, Bahar and the children enter, and Nevra mentions they were waiting for them to have lunch together. Bahar responds that she and the children already had lunch outside, which annoys Nevra. However, when Nevra sees the handbag Bahar bought for her, she forgets her annoyance and becomes delighted with the gift. Bahar then leaves them, mentioning she has a breakfast invitation the next day. In her room, Bahar feels conflicted about her actions, but Taimur tries to surprise her with a handicap parking permit for her to use. Bahar is infuriated by this, arguing she is not disabled, and forcefully tells Taimur to leave so she can take a shower. Alone, Bahar examines her surgical scar, taking pictures and feeling sad about her situation. The next day, Bahar has breakfast with her mother, who advises her to live and enjoy her life. Bahar confesses she can't remember what makes her happy, and her mother reminds her of her love for study and her dedication to her homework as a child. Meanwhile, Renjin is still upset with Taimur, refusing his attempts at reconciliation, insisting he should visit her at home instead. At the same time, Bahar is at the hospital with Dr. Irfan for a routine checkup. Dr. Irfan tells her she can return to her normal life, but Bahar declares she doesn't intend to return to her old life. That night, Bahar dresses elegantly to meet her friend Shagla, making sure Nevra sees her transformation. Nevra mocks Bahar's shoes as imitation, but Bahar confidently corrects her, saying they are indeed genuine, leaving Nevra frustrated by the cost. Bahar and Shagla reminisce about their college days, revealing Bahar had forgotten Taimur was previously in love with Renjin before their relationship. The narrative flashes back, showing that Taimur and Renjin had a tumultuous relationship and eventually broke up after a significant fight, which left Taimur visibly upset. Bahar, always observing them from a distance, finds herself drawn to Taimur during this vulnerable moment. Without any direct communication, they end up spending time together, leading to their eventual relationship and Bahar becoming pregnant during their college years, planning for their future child's room. Suddenly, she sees them, Rengen, and accuses Taimur of betraying her and getting married. She tells him that they were just in a fight but never broke up. She humiliates him in front of everyone. She takes Bahar aside and starts crying. We return to the present, and Bahar is curious about what Rengen is doing now. Shagla tells her that the last thing she knows about her is that she got married and moved to America with her husband. Shagla asks her to change the subject and forget the past. Bahar says she wants to return to medicine again. Shagla is very happy about her decision and encourages her. At the same time, we see Taimur going to buy blue orchid flowers for Rengen to make up with her. After that, he goes to her house and Rengen is upset and not happy with the flowers. She asks Taimur when he will divorce Bahar. Taimur makes excuses that his situation with his children is not the best and asks her for time to separate from Bahar. However, Rengen makes it clear that she is not Bahar to wait for him. She reminds him that they have been secretly together for 3 years and that he always comes up with different excuses. Timur tells her that a mistake with Bahar cost him his whole life and promises to make up for everything she missed. He tells her he loves her very much and that he cannot live without her, pleading for her to stay with him. At the same time, we see Dr. Efren in a bar, and one of the people there is upset because he does not remember her despite spending a night together. She is determined to make him remember her. She approaches him and reminds him of herself and even enters the bathroom with him to get closer. However, Efren is not interested in her at all, makes an excuse that there is a fight in the bar and goes to break it up. We see him taking the 2 boys who were fighting, wanting to reconcile them and treat their wounds. At the same time, Bahar has finished her night out and is in bed. Before she sleeps, she writes Rengin's name and realizes that she has been working for 3 years in the same hospital as Timur without knowing it. The next day, Bahar decides to go to the hospital for Timur. She calls him and tells him she has a surprise for him, but as soon as Timur knows she is at the hospital, he panics. He immediately goes down to her and asks her to leave. However, Bahar tells him she wants 200,000 lira to take a medical assistant course. As soon as Timur hears this, he mocks her and tells her she is too old. He calls his assistant, who is in her 20s, and tells her these are the assistants and people her age should be professors. Bahar tells him that during their 20 years of marriage, she never asked him for any money, and this is the first time she is asking. However, Timur's response is harsh. He tells her he does not have 200,000 lira to throw away on the street and asks her to leave. But Bahar tells him she is going to her son, Aziz. At the same time, Rengin is leaving and sees them together. Timur immediately goes to her, locks her in a room, and asks her not to leave until Bahar has left to avoid upsetting her. However, Rengin is annoyed and tells him that she is a professor at the hospital and it should be Bahar who leaves, not her. She leaves Timur and exits. Afterward, Bahar arrives at Aziz's place but finds Saran yelling at him for disobeying Timur's instructions and allowing the patient to leave the hospital. She tells him that the patient will return with complications. To avoid embarrassing Aziz when he sees his mother, Bahar decides to leave without seeing Saran and Aziz make up when they are alone. She tells him that wanting to annoy his father does not mean he should endanger people's lives. However, Bahar hears Aziz's colleagues telling him that his job at the hospital is to make mistakes and get yelled at, and they would never want to be in his place. Suddenly, Bahar hears someone calling her and discovers it's Dr. Evran, who tells her he's glad to see her because he wanted to send her a message at night. Bahar gets scared and misunderstands him, but he wants to send her the photos taken in the hospital. When Bahar sees the photos, she thanks Evran for allowing her to enter the operating room, tells her that medicine suits her, can help her if she wants to return to medicine. He advises her to take advantage of the fact that her husband and father-in-law were doctors. Bahar says she doesn't want to tell anyone that Timur is her husband and she wants to start from scratch. Evran advises her to follow her dream. At home, Timur tells his mother that Bahar wants 200,000 lira to return to medicine. His mother is upset and asks him not to give her any money, saying that if Bahar returns to medicine, she will turn against them and refuse to serve them. Timur is convinced by her words. At the same time, Bahar is in her room. She takes out her white coat from her college training days, wears it, is excited about returning to medicine again. But Timur interrupts her. He wants to talk to her about what she told him in the morning. He asks her to forget about returning to medicine and tells her she won't make a good doctor because she is emotional and also old. Bahar is upset, tells him that she will be a doctor's assistant and even in his hospital. Timur mocks her and advises her to take sewing courses like their worker or go find a painting course to spend her free time, making it clear he won't give her any money. The next day, Bahar wakes up to the sound of the phone. Her mother-in-law asks them to go out for breakfast together, and Bahar realizes it's 10 o'clock. She is very happy because it's the first time she has woken up late. At the restaurant, Nevra boasts about the luxurious taste of the place she brought Bahar to for breakfast. However, Bahar tells her she has had lunch there before. Nevra brings up the topic and blames Bahar for asking Timur for 200,000 lira, saying she has no right to his money since he earned it through his work. She also accuses Bahar of going through a midlife crisis and asks her to reconsider returning to medicine to avoid embarrassing them, offering her car as a form of change. But Bahar is focused on Nevra's bag. Later, we see Bahar buying a counterfeit bag identical to Nevra's. She goes back home and switches the 2 bags, takes a picture of Nevra's bag, and offers it for sale for 200,000 lira instead of 210,000. Afterwards, Bahar goes to change her family name from her husband's family name to her father's and refuses to have the ID card sent to her house so that no one knows she changed her family name. She tells the officer she will come to pick it up herself. Then Bahar enrolls in a specialization course with the money from the bag. We see her studying for the course and attending classes without anyone seeing her, as well as going about her normal day. Before the course exam, Omey wins first place in a drawing course. Aziz apologizes to her because he will be in a specialization exam and won't be able to to be with her, but it doesn't matter to her because she is sure Bahar will be there for her. When Timur arrives and asks what's happening, Aziz and Omay leave, showing they don't want to be anywhere he is. On the day of the exam, Aziz is revising while having breakfast, and Bahar is revising with him. Suddenly, the door knocks, and Bahar pretends not to hear it so that Nevra will open it. It's Gül at the door, refusing to enter. Bahar goes out to her and takes from her the rice that has been prayed over, so that Aziz will succeed in his exam. Nevra gets annoyed and accuses her of ignorance, but they ignore her, and Aziz eats 2 pieces of the rice before heading to the exam. At the same time, Omay is at the party waiting for her mother to arrive, but Bahar is late. We see her also eating 2 pieces of the rice before going to her own specialization exam and turning off her phone so Omay can't call her. While Omay is receiving her prize, Bahar is taking her exam. At night, Bahar goes to Omay's room, wanting to celebrate with her, but Omay refuses to open the door, upset that Bahar wasn't with her at the party. Later, the exam results are released, and Bahar scores 79.5, which makes her extremely happy to the point of dancing with joy. Aziz calls her to tell her he scored 75, doubling Bahar's happiness. Rengin is shocked when she finds Bahar's name among the assistant doctors who have applied to work with them in the department. She speaks with the hospital director and tells him that despite Bahar's high score, she is old and has disabilities due to a liver transplant surgery. Rengin immediately calls Timur and informs him about Bahar, asking him to speak to the hospital director and make him reject Bahar's application, arguing that the hospital is the only place that belongs to them alone. Timur is upset when he learns that Bahar has changed her name and immediately goes to speak with the director. The next morning, Bahar receives a call from the hospital informing her that her application has been rejected due to her health condition. That night, Bahar tells Aziz that she passed the exam and that Timur is unaware. Aziz blames her for bearing the burden and stress of the exams alone. Bahar tells him there was no need for anyone to know since she was rejected. Aziz encourages her and suggests she could apply again next year. Suddenly, Timur interrupts them, arriving happy and feeling victorious for preventing Bahar from achieving her dream. He offers her a trip with her friend as a form of compensation. The next day, the trainees arrive, and both Rengin and Timur are happy because Bahar is not among them. At the same time, Bahar is with Evren, following up with him. She tells him she was rejected because of her health condition. Evren tells her that he also received an offer to work at the same hospital, which saddens Bahar because they could have been colleagues if she had been accepted. Later, we see Evren going to the hospital director, agreeing to accept the offer to join them on the condition that Bahar is also accepted. Subsequently, Bahar is at the airport, ready to travel with Shahla, but she receives a call from the hospital asking her to come to them. She is very happy and immediately goes to the hospital. At the hospital, Timur and Rengin are surprised by a message from the hospital director, asking them to attend a meeting to interview Bahar. When Bahar arrives at the hospital, she finds Timur, who blames her for changing her name and applying at his hospital. They agree not to tell anyone that she is his wife. During the interview, Bahar sees Rengin for the first time in years. In the interview, Rengin and Timur object to Bahar because of the surgery she underwent. Timur argues that a doctor should not be sicker than the patient. However, Evren believes that Bahar's experience makes her a competent and compassionate doctor. When Rengin asks about her social situation, Bahar tells her that her husband died in an accident, which makes Evren laugh when Timur is shocked by the answer. The hospital director has no choice but to vote on Bahar's appointment. Evren and 2 other doctors believe Bahar is suitable to join them, while Timur, the hospital director, and another doctor do not agree with her presence. The decision is left to Rengin, who can either agree or disagree with Bahar's presence. Timur is confident because he knows Rengin will reject Bahar. However, everyone is shocked when Rengin agrees to Bahar's presence, making Bahar very happy because she is accepted.